When hope becomes a distant memory, the emergency beacon from the derelict Xylorian transport ship had been silent for 3 standard days when Captain Marcus Webb received the distress signal. His cargo hauler, the Iron Promise, was running a routine supply mission to the outer colonies when the faint transmission reached their communications array. Most captains would have logged it and moved on. The outer rim was littered with dead ships and broken dreams, but Marcus Webb was not. Most captains, "Sir, we're picking up life signs," reported his navigation officer, Lieutenant Jake Morrison, his voice tight with concern. "Extremely weak, but there's definitely someone alive on that transport." Marcus studied the tactical display, showing the massive Xylorian vessel tumbling slowly through the void. The ship was ancient by human standards, its bioorganic hull scarred, and blackened from what appeared to be a catastrophic system failure. Xylorians were a peaceful race, traders and explorers who had maintained neutral relations with humanity for decades. Their ships were marvels of biotechnology, grown rather than built, capable of sustaining life for generations. This one was dying. "How many survivors?" Marcus asked, already knowing the answer would complicate everything. "Scans show 1 life. Form, sir. Xylorian. Located in what appears to be the ship's central core. Temperature readings are critical. The ship's biosystems are failing rapidly." Marcus felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. The Iron Promise was a small vessel with a crew of 12. They had supplies for their planned route, nothing more. Deviating to attempt a rescue would put his own crew at risk, delay their mission, and potentially strand them if something went wrong. But someone was dying alone in the dark. Someone who had probably watched their entire crew succumb to cold and system failure. Someone who was now waiting for death in the crushing loneliness of space. "Prep the shuttle," Marcus ordered. "Jake, you're with me. Chief Engineer Rodriguez, I need you to analyze their bioship systems. See if there's any way to restore life support." "Sir," Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm. "Those Xylorian bioships are incredibly complex. Their technology is based on living organisms we barely understand. If their systems are failing, I'm not sure we can help." Marcus was already suiting up. "We'll figure it out. Nobody dies on my watch if I can help it." The rescue attempt. The shuttle. Bay of the Xylorian transport was a maze of organic corridors that pulsed weakly with bioluminescent patterns. The air was thin and bitter cold. Marcus and Jake moved carefully through the ship, following their scanner readings toward the life sign. The walls around them were covered in a delicate frost, and their breath came out in white puffs that sparkled in their helmet lights. "Jesus," Jake whispered. "This place feels like a tomb." They found her in the central chamber, curled in what appeared to be a hibernation pod that had partially failed. She was small even by Xylorian standards, her pale blue skin marked with intricate silver patterns that seemed to shift in the light. Her breathing was shallow, her body racked with violent shivers. Ice crystals had formed in her long white hair. "She's hypothermic," Marcus said, scanning her with his medical scanner. "Core temperature is dropping fast. We need to get her warm now." But as they attempted to lift her, the pod's systems sparked and died completely. The chamber's temperature plummeted further. Jake's readings showed the ship's biocore was in complete failure. They had minutes, maybe less. Without hesitation, Marcus began removing his heated suit liner. "Sir, what are you doing?" Jake asked in alarm. "She'll die from the cold before we can get her to our ship," Marcus replied, wrapping the liner around the Xylorian female. "My suit can handle the cold better than she can." As he held her close, sharing his body heat, Marcus felt the immediate bite of the freezing air. But her shivering began to subside. In the darkness of the dying ship, a human captain gave everything he had to keep an alien stranger warm. The rescue was just beginning. When warmth becomes sacrifice, the journey back to the Iron Promise became a race against time and biology. Marcus, carried the unconscious Xylorian female whom his crew had begun calling Zara after her mumbled words in her native tongue. His body temperature was dropping steadily, but every time he loosened his grip or tried to put more distance between them, her condition worsened. "Sir, your core temperature is approaching dangerous levels," Jake warned as they navigated the shuttle back to their ship. "You need to warm up." Marcus gritted his teeth against the cold that seemed to seep into his bones. "She's still too cold. Look at her readings. If I let go now, we'll lose her." Dr. Helen Cross, the ship's medical officer, was waiting in the medical bay when they arrived. She took one look at both patients and immediately began barking orders. "Get them both on thermal regulation units now!" But as they tried to separate Marcus from Zara, her vital signs crashed. Her skin, which had begun to show a healthier blue tint, turned pale gray. The silver patterns on her skin flickered and dimmed. "She's going into shock," Dr. Cross announced. "Her body is shutting down. I've never seen Xylorian physiology react this way." Marcus, despite his own dangerous condition, refused to let go. "There's something else happening here. It's not just hypothermia." Chief Engineer Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, his face grim. "Sir, I've been analyzing the bioship's logs. That Xylorian isn't just any crew member. According to the records, she's a thermal empath. Her species has a rare genetic trait that allows them to share body heat and life force with others. But when they're severely traumatized, they can only bond with one individual at a time." Dr. Cross looked up from her readings. "You mean she's bonded to the captain?" "It explains why she stabilizes when he's close and crashes when he's not," Rodriguez continued. "But sir, this is dangerous. If she's drawing on your life force to survive, it could kill you both." Marcus felt the truth of it in his bones. Every breath was becoming harder. His vision was starting to blur. But when he looked down at Zara, he could see her silver patterns growing brighter. Her breathing was becoming stronger. "How long?" he asked quietly. "Unknown, sir. Could be hours, could be days. Depends on how much trauma she's experienced and how her body responds to recovery." The crew's dilemma. The bridge of the Iron Promise became a hub of tense discussion. With their captain's life hanging in the balance, the crew faced an impossible decision. Lieutenant Morrison had taken temporary command, but everyone knew the situation was unprecedented. "We could try to break the bond," Dr. Cross suggested, during an emergency meeting. "Sedate them both, force a separation." "That could kill her," Rodriguez countered, "and we don't know enough about Xylorian physiology to predict what would happen to the captain. So we just let him die?" Chief Security Officer Tom Bradley asked bluntly. "Because that's what's happening. His life signs are getting weaker by the hour." Morrison stared at the medical reports. Marcus had been conscious for the first 12 hours, insisting he was fine, making command decisions from the medical bay. But in the last 6 hours, he'd grown increasingly weak. The thermal empathic bond was literally draining his life force to sustain Zara. "What would the captain want us to do?" Morrison asked finally. The answer came from an unexpected source. Chief Cook, Maria Santos, who rarely spoke during official meetings, cleared her throat. "He'd want us to save her. All of us know that. Captain Webb has never left anyone behind. He won't start now, even if it costs him everything." The crew fell silent. They all knew she was right. Marcus Webb was the kind of captain who would give his life for a stranger without hesitation. It was what made him a great leader, and what was currently killing him. "Then we find another way," Morrison declared. "Rodriguez, I want you to study everything we have on Xylorian biology. Cross, keep monitoring both of them. Bradley, prep the ship for extended mission delay. We're not moving until we figure this out." "Sir," Rodriguez said carefully, "what if we can't figure it out? What if the only way to save her is to let the captain—" "Then we find a third option," Morrison interrupted firmly. "Because on this ship, we don't sacrifice our people. We save them all." As the hours passed, the crew of the Iron Promise worked. with a desperation born of loyalty and human stubbornness. They refused to accept that saving one life had to cost another. In the cold of space, surrounded by the vast indifference of the universe, they clung to the belief that compassion didn't have to be paid for with death. But time was running out, and Marcus Webb was fading fast. When science meets the hard 18 hours into the crisis, Chief Engineer Rodriguez made a discovery that changed everything. He'd been poring over Xylorian biological data, cross-referencing it with human medical records, when he found something that made him run to the medical bay. "Dr. Cross, I need you to look at this," he said, pulling up a holographic display. "I've been analyzing the captain's neural activity during the bonding periods." The display showed two sets of brainwave patterns, one human and one Xylorian, synchronized in a way that seemed impossible. "They're not just sharing body heat," Rodriguez continued excitedly. "They're sharing neural pathways. Look at these patterns during her recovery periods. Her brain is literally learning to regulate temperature from his." Dr. Cross studied the data carefully. "You're saying she's not just drawing on his life force, she's downloading his thermal regulation responses?" "Exactly. Xylorians are natural, empaths, but trauma can disrupt their natural abilities. She's using the captain's neural patterns as a template to rebuild her own thermal control systems." Lieutenant Morrison, who had been maintaining a bedside vigil, looked up hopefully. "So once she learns his patterns, she won't need the bond anymore?" "That's the theory," Rodriguez replied. "But there's a problem. The learning process is incomplete. Her brain keeps reverting to the damaged pathways. We need to find a way to make the neural transfer permanent." Dr. Cross was already moving toward her equipment. "What if we could amplify the transfer, use our medical scanners to map the captain's thermal regulation patterns more precisely, then use neural stimulation to help her brain integrate them?" "It's never been attempted on a Xylorian," Rodriguez warned. "We could cause permanent brain damage, and if we do nothing, they both die," Morrison pointed out grimly. The procedure. The next 6 hours were the longest in the crew's memory. Dr. Cross worked with steady hands, using every piece of medical technology on the ship to map and amplify the neural connection between Marcus and Zara. The process was delicate, requiring her to maintain the life-sustaining bond while simultaneously helping Zara's brain learn to function independently. Chief Cook Santos took charge of keeping the crew fed and focused. "The captain always said a crew works best on full stomachs," she reminded everyone, though few had much appetite. Security Chief Bradley coordinated with Morrison to handle any emergencies that might arise, though privately he wondered what they would do if they lost their captain. Marcus Webb wasn't just their commanding officer. He was the heart of their small crew family. As the procedure continued, something remarkable began to happen. Zara's silver patterns, which had been flickering weakly, began to pulse with a steady, healthy rhythm. Her breathing deepened. The pale gray of her skin gradually returned to a vibrant blue. More importantly, Marcus's vital signs began to stabilize. "It's working," Dr. Cross whispered, afraid to speak too loudly and somehow jinx the process. "Her brain is integrating the thermal regulation patterns. The neural bond is weakening naturally as her own systems come online." But the most significant change wasn't visible on any scanner. As the hours passed, the crew noticed that both patients seemed more peaceful. The strain and desperation that had marked their faces was fading, replaced by something that looked almost serene. First words. When Zara finally opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was Marcus Webb's face. He was conscious but weak, his hand still resting near hers on the medical bed. She tried to speak, but only managed a whisper in her native tongue. Dr. Cross quickly ran a scanner over both patients. "Neural bond is stable but separated. Both of your brains are functioning independently now. Captain, how do you feel?" Marcus managed a weak smile. "Like I've been hit by a freight hauler, but alive." He looked at Zara. "How is she?" Zara's voice was soft but clear when she finally spoke in accented standard. You saved me." "Why?" The question seemed to puzzle Marcus. "Because you needed help. But I am not your species, not your crew. I am nothing to you." Morrison stepped forward from where he'd been standing in the corner. "Ma'am, you don't understand humans very well if you think that matters to us." Zara's large, dark eyes moved around the room, taking in the faces of the crew who had worked tirelessly to save both her and their captain. "Your people. You risk everything for strangers." "Not strangers," Marcus said softly. "Just people who need help. That's what we do." For the first time since her rescue, Zara smiled. It was a beautiful expression that made her silver patterns shimmer with warmth. "Then I understand why the galaxy speaks of human hearts with such wonder." The crisis was over, but the real story was just beginning to unfold. When the past unveils the future. 3 days into Zara's recovery, she finally felt strong enough to share her story. The crew gathered in the small mess hall of the Iron Promise, curious about the mysterious Xylorian they had saved. What she told them changed their understanding of everything that had happened. "My name is Zara Thelnari," she began, her voice gaining strength with each word. "I was not just a passenger on that transport, I was fleeing." Marcus, still recovering but insisting on being present, leaned forward. "Fleeing from what?" Zara's silver patterns dimmed as painful memories surfaced. "From my own people." "You see, thermal empathy is considered a genetic defect among modern Xylorians. We are seen as unstable, dangerous. Most of us are eliminated at birth." The crew exchanged horrified glances. Dr. Cross spoke first. "But your ability saved your life. It's what allowed you to survive when your ship's systems failed." "Yes," Zara nodded sadly. "The irony is not lost on me. The trait my people consider a curse is what kept me alive long enough for you to find me." Chief Engineer Rodriguez frowned. "But why were you on that transport? Where were you going?" "I was seeking the refuge worlds," Zara explained. "Places where genetic outcasts like me are rumored to find sanctuary. But the ship was attacked by raiders. They damaged our biocore, and when the systems began failing, the crew, they blamed me. They said my presence had cursed the voyage." Lieutenant Morrison's jaw tightened. "So they left you to die?" "They had families to think of, escape pods that could only support limited life. In their minds, sacrificing the defective one was logical." Zara's voice held no bitterness, only deep sadness. Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. "That's not logic. That's cowardice." "This is why I do not understand you," Zara said, looking directly at him. "You knew nothing about me. I could have been anyone, anything. Yet you risked your life, your crew's mission, everything. Why?" The human answer chief Cook Santos, who had been quietly listening, stood up and walked to the small viewport. Outside, stars wheeled slowly in the darkness of space. "Captain Webb, permission to speak freely?" Marcus nodded, curious about what Maria was thinking. "Ma'am," Santos said, addressing Zara, "you want to know why we helped you? It's because that's what humans do. We don't leave people behind. We don't sacrifice the different ones or the broken ones or the ones that don't fit. We carry them." She gestured toward the stars. "Out there, every species has their reasons for survival. Territory, resources, genetic purity. But humans, we survive because we refuse to let anyone face the dark alone." Security Chief Bradley nodded agreement. "It's not always practical. Sometimes it gets us in trouble. But it's who we are," Dr. Cross added. "In human culture, the measure of a person isn't how perfect they are, it's how they treat those who can't help themselves." Zara was quiet for a long moment, processing this philosophy that seemed so foreign to her experience. Finally, she spoke. On my world, strength is measured by genetic perfection and individual achievement. You measure it by compassion? Among other things, Marcus replied. Courage, loyalty, the willingness to do what's right, even when it's hard. Your thermal empathy isn't a defect, Zara. It's a gift. It's what allowed you to connect with me, to learn from my neural patterns. Without it, neither of us would have survived. But your people paid such a price for my survival. Morrison laughed, surprising everyone. Ma'am, the only price we paid was some delayed cargo and missed sleep. What we gained was immeasurable. How so? Rodriguez stepped forward. Your bioship's technology. Even in its dying state, I learned more about organic engineering in 3 days than I had in my entire career. The thermal empathy bond you shared with the captain. Dr. Cross documented everything. That data could revolutionize human medical treatment. Dr. Cross nodded enthusiastically. The way your brain adapted and learned from the captain's neural patterns could help us develop new treatments for trauma victims, people with brain injuries, even those with genetic disorders. You see? Marcus said gently. You didn't just survive because of us. We all grew stronger because of you. A new purpose, Zara stared at the humans around her, these strange beings who had turned everything she'd been taught about survival upside down. Your species is remarkable, she said finally. No wonder the galaxy watches you with such fascination and fear. Fear? Morrison asked. Yes, because if compassion becomes strength, if diversity becomes advantage, if caring for the broken makes a species stronger, then everything the galaxy believes about power and survival is wrong. Marcus smiled, feeling stronger than he had since the rescue. Maybe it's time the galaxy learned a different way. Zara's silver patterns began to glow with a warm, steady light. Captain Webb, I have a request. What is it? I no longer wish to seek the refuge worlds. I wish to stay with your crew, if you will have me. I want to learn more about this human way of survival, and perhaps I can teach others that being different is not a curse. The crew exchanged glances, and Marcus saw the same answer in every face. They had started this journey as cargo haulers. Now they were becoming something more. Welcome to the crew, Zara Thelnari, Marcus said. Let's see what other impossible things we can accomplish together. The ripple effect, when one act of kindness changes everything. 6 months after the rescue, the Iron Promise had become something unprecedented in galactic space, a symbol of hope. Word of the human crew, who had risked everything to save a genetic outcast, had spread through underground networks, refugee channels, and even official diplomatic communications. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of his ship, now significantly modified with Xylorian biotechnology improvements that Zara had helped implement. The cargo holds that once carried simple trade goods now housed something far more precious, beings who had nowhere else to go. Captain, Lieutenant Morrison called from his station, we're receiving another transmission from the outer colonies. 3 more ships requesting escort to the Sanctuary Station. Marcus nodded. The Sanctuary Station had been Zara's idea. Using her knowledge of Xylorian biotechnology and the crew's human determination, they had established a neutral station where genetic outcasts, refugees, and unwanted beings could find safety and purpose. Any word from the Galactic Council about our operations? Marcus asked. Dr. Cross, who had become the station's chief medical officer when she wasn't traveling with the Iron Promise, looked up from her reports. Mixed reactions. Some species are calling us dangerous revolutionaries. Others are quietly sending their own outcasts to us. Zara entered the bridge, her silver patterns now glowing with healthy vitality. In the months since her rescue, she had become more than just a crew member. She was the bridge between human compassion and galactic understanding. The morning reports, Captain, she said, handing him a data pad. 43 new arrivals this week. 2 Kelvarian twins rejected for genetic abnormalities. A Thaxian who refused military conditioning, and a group of Andromedans fleeing religious persecution. Marcus reviewed the numbers with satisfaction. Each name represented a life saved, a being given a second chance. Any problems with integration? None, Zara replied with pride. Chief Santos has worked miracles with cross-cultural nutrition. Engineer Rodriguez has had volunteers from 12 different species helping with station improvements, and Chief Bradley reports that crime is virtually non-existent. It's amazing what happens when people feel valued instead of rejected. Dr. Cross observed. The challenge, but their success had not gone unnoticed by less friendly forces. Security Chief Bradley entered the bridge with a grim expression. Captain, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up a hegemony battle fleet heading this way. The hegemony was an alliance of species that believed in genetic purity and social hierarchy. They viewed the human-led sanctuary movement as a direct threat to their way of life. How long until they reach us? Marcus asked. 18 hours, sir. Morrison looked up from his calculations. Sir, we can evacuate the most vulnerable refugees, but we can't save everyone. The station doesn't have enough transport capacity. Marcus felt the familiar weight of command, but this time it was different. This time he wasn't just responsible for his crew of 12. He was responsible for thousands of beings who had trusted him with their lives. What are our defensive capabilities? He asked. Bradley shook his head. The station has shields and some weapons, but nothing that could stand against a full battle fleet. We're a sanctuary, not a fortress. Then we don't. Fight them, Zara said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. We show them. Show them what? Morrison asked. Zara's silver patterns pulsed with determination. What we've built here. What's possible when you don't throw away the different ones? The demonstration. When the hegemony fleet arrived, they expected to find a ramshackle collection of outcasts and misfits barely clinging to survival. Instead, they found something that challenged every assumption they held about genetic purity and social order. Admiral Corex of the hegemony fleet demanded a meeting with the station's leadership. Marcus, accompanied by Zara and 3 other crew members, met the Admiral in the station's central hub. The Admiral was a tall, imposing Valorian with the typical genetic modifications of his species: enhanced strength, perfect symmetry, engineered intelligence. He looked at the diverse group before him with obvious distaste. This illegal gathering of genetic refuse will be disbanded immediately, he announced. These beings will be returned to their homeworlds for proper disposal. With respect, Admiral, Marcus replied calmly, these people have committed no crimes except being born different. Different is dangerous, the Admiral stated. Genetic anomalies weaken the species. Social outcasts destabilize order. Is that so? Zara stepped forward. Admiral, may I show you something? Before he could refuse, Zara activated a holographic display. It showed the station's productivity reports, medical advances, technological innovations, and social harmony statistics. These genetic refuse, as you call them, have achieved something remarkable, she continued. 0 violent crime. Medical, breakthroughs in cross-species treatment, technological advances that purebred engineers called impossible. Cultural exchange that has created art and music beyond anything I experienced in my genetically pure homeworld. Admiral Corex studied the data with growing confusion. This must be fabricated. Tour the station, Marcus offered. See for yourself. Talk to the beings you came to destroy. Judge for yourself whether diversity makes us weak or strong. The choice, what happened next, would be talked about in diplomatic circles for generations. Admiral Corex, expecting to find chaos and weakness, instead discovered a thriving community where beings discarded by their societies had found purpose and belonging. He met Kelvarian twins whose defective empathic abilities had revolutionized conflict resolution. He saw Thaxian cowards, whose refusal to fight had led them to develop remarkable healing technologies. He encountered Andromedans whose heretical beliefs had inspired artistic achievements that moved him to tears. Most importantly, he witnessed humans who had given up everything to help strangers and had somehow become stronger for it. When the Admiral returned to his flagship, his officers expected immediate orders to attack. Instead, he stood in silence for a long time, staring at the station through the viewport. "Admiral," his second-in-command prompted. "Stand down," Korex said quietly. "Sir?" I said, "Stand down. We're returning to hegemony space." "But the outcasts, sir. The genetic anomalies." Admiral Korex turned away from the viewport. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we have been the anomalies all along." The Legacy A's, the hegemony fleet, departed without firing a shot. The crew of the Iron Promise gathered on the observation deck of their station. They watched the ships disappear into hyperspace, knowing that word of what had happened here would spread. "Do you think we've changed anything?" Morrison asked. Marcus put his arm around Zara's shoulders, still amazed by the journey that had brought them here. "One rescue at a time, one heart at a time, one choice at a time. That's how humans change the galaxy." Zara's silver patterns glowed with warmth as she looked out at the stars. "The galaxy taught me that being different was a curse. You taught me it was a gift. Now perhaps we can teach the galaxy." In the cold darkness of space, the sanctuary station continued to shine, a beacon not just of light, but of hope. A testament to the idea that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from perfection, but from the courage to care for those the world has forgotten. The human way was spreading, one rescued soul at a time.